Hey, welcome back everyone to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 138. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Marnell.
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing today? How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I am well. Congratulations to the Patriots.
Oh yeah, thank you. We're greatest in the league. All right. So for those of you who want to follow along, there's a docket in the description beneath the video. Please hit the like button as you come in, and we will get started. All right. So first article is from Forbes.com. Disruptive farmers grow a new ag business model. The world is going to run out of food. Don't worry, the best minds of it are on it. They are using better seeds, lighting, and irrigation systems to reimagine farming. They are also using robots, and this has attracted the attention of, not to mention, funding from several high-profile humans. Bowery Farming Incorporated calls this process precision farming. According to a report from Bloomberg, the indoor agriculture technology company is about to secure $90 million in funding. It is a large opportunity for investors with vision. Like many technology startups, Bowery founders are determined to solve the big problem confronting the world. The United Nations projects that the world population will swell to 10 billion people by 2050. To keep up, the glo- to keep up, global farmers will have to produce 70% more food. Unfortunately, there is not enough water or land possibly to meet future demand. Most of the world's water resources are used for food production, and 30% of arable agricultural land has been lost to poor planning, pesticides, and urbanization. So, Bowery engineers set out to do more with less. The solution began with controlling as many variables as possible. Crops are grown indoors under ideal conditions without pesticides. Complex LED lighting mimics the full spectrum of the sun. Irrigation systems deliver nutrients with exact specificity, uh, specificity, resulting in 95% water use than traditional farming and a 100x improvement in crop yields. The urban farm company is using all tools of modern technology, robotics, machine learning, computer vision, and data science to fine tune the entire process. Huawei is not the only company in the game. Last year, indoor and farm company Plenty made headlines when it secured $20 million in financing from SoftBank, the Japanese firm led by billionaire uh, Masayoshi Son, and investment companies associated former Alphabet chairman Eric Schmidt and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. The gigantic investment in the tiny San Francisco startup sent shockwaves through the burgeoning ag tech community. Early investors understood the potential of marrying sensors, robotics, and data science with agriculture. The SoftBank vote of confidence underscored this urgency. Bowie's last $90 million round was led by GV, the new name of Google Ventures. Alphabet, the company of Google, has made a cottage industry out of developing business models around machine learning. Its investment in Bowery is on brand. Farming has not changed much in centuries. Yes, there are now self-driving tractors and even drones to monitor the growing process. But the basic premise still involves sowing seed and waiting patiently for Mother Nature to bless the soil with beautiful crops. What do you think about this, Lino?
All right, so in the coming decades, the world's population is supposed to grow from between 7 billion, where let's say 6.5 billion, where it is right now. That's being conservative, I would say, to about 12 million, and supposed to top off around 12 million. Not million, billion with a big bravo. That's a lot of people, mainly China, India, having these people. But there's a lot of people around the world. There's no more land being developed. A lot of land, believe it or not, is cannot grow any vegetables, any food, such as a lot of land in Brazil. You think a lot of a lot of that land, arable land, cannot grow any vegetables. So new farming techniques has to be done. Not only new farming techniques has to be developed, but more efficient ways of doing these farming techniques. This is what this article is bringing to light. Um, I remember after World War II or World War I, you had a lot of people putting window gardens in their windows. That's another form of gardening. But now you're having people doing that, but even let's say on steroids, um, they're actually doing it in their house under favorable lighting conditions, in their on their lawns, backyards, raised beds, vertical farming. So you have that and new techniques to make that more efficient,
Mhm.
such as the robots, IoT devices to say, hey, uh, we're scanning this. We think it's time to pick this, instead of you going and touching the stuff and potentially harming it or stunt its growth. So this is what they're this I believe this article is alluding to.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, before, well, I should say before, but the emergence of this technology is allowing urban farms to sprout up everywhere. Like you said before, back after World War II, people, during the Cold War, people would put, these plants and stuff outside of their windowsill, under the impression that there will be a nuclear fallout and you would have to grow all this food and stuff. And you would, be a cold winter and all this other stuff for 20 years or something like that, right? So now you have shipping containers, you have, um, uh, you can go on Amazon or Alibaba and get these greenhouses now for dirt cheap relative to what it cost, 100 years ago. Um, and now you can have these backyards, all this underutilized land in urban areas, and you can build your farms up that way, and you can actually, you know, basically have your own Whole Foods. People go to Whole Foods because they think that all of the food is organic, and that's not always the case, but
Mm-hmm.
um, you can actually have this organic produce being distributed through your neighborhood and charge actually a pretty penny because people pay a lot for organic food now. It's actually
Yes,
a lifestyle.
yes, and this can actually I can foresee this possibly having like a I want to say a co-op, but neighborhoods or towns running their own farms. You have uh, lots between houses that are just there, so you can put up some type of urban farming there in these lots. And in some neighborhoods, there are a lot of lots, so you can have a lot of farming, and you can just distribute the fruits and vegetables within their neighborhood, and that will cut down on uh, having the need to import your fruits and vegetables. So that can be an idea.
Hmm. Actually, let me share my screen because I been wanting to talk about this for a while.
Hmm.
Let's show this. Where is it?
Hey, we're at 596 subscribers. Okay, pretty nice. Pretty congratulations. Hit the like
Yeah. So
button, people.
let me share my screen real quick. Here's a an image of one of the companies I used to support early in my career called Backyard Farms, and this is an aerial shot of their facility, and this is one massive greenhouse.
It is.
Right?
What's that like
No,
a
I'm saying
football
it's
field or two?
no, that's probably about three or four football fields.
Man, that's big.
Yeah, it's about three or
Okay.
four football fields. So let me see if I can find. This is an image of the inside here.
Wow.
So you have
That looks
these.
like a forest.
Yeah, so you have these sky lifts that go up and down to allow the your farmers to actually pick the produce and whatnot. And this stuff grows in a matter of days because they figured out
Mm.
the process. So they built vertically, but at the same time they've also built horizontally. And what that has allowed them to do is grow twice as much, the same amount of food in a smaller space that they would have needed for a whole entire traditional farm. And they have these
Yeah.
little, right, and they have these little trains that actually go up and down the aisles of the produce. And what those trains do is allows them to ride down because remember it's three football fields long, four football fields long. So as you're riding down, you can the robots can actually pick the stuff off.
Wow. And everything's organic.
Yeah, it's all organic. That's the whole entire facility. Everybody, if you look at their feet, they have these booties on their feet so that they're not bringing in bacteria.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a serious operation.
Yeah. Imagine doing something like this and interweaving it in the architecture of your society. Just this. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And it grows all year round, right? Because it has HVAC inside of it. Plus, it's a greenhouse, right? So you're constantly getting sun, no matter what time of the year it is.
Mm, that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, next article is from Tom'sHardware.com. Orange Pi 3 ready to take on Raspberry Pi 3. Shenzhen Zulong Software has released its latest Orange Pi 3 development board to rival the Raspberry Pi 3. The Orange Pi 3 is available on AliExpress with the base model starting from $29.90, while the highest end model will set you back $39.90. Measuring 90 by 64 millimeters and weighing in at 75 grams, the Orange Pi 3 boasts a blue PCB, printed circuit board. It sports the all-winner H6 SoC, system on chip. That features a quad-core ARM Cortex A53 processor clocked at 1.8 gigahertz with ARM Mali T720 graphics processing unit. The Orange Pi 3 comes with 1 GB of LP DDR3, low powered DDR3 memory, which can be expanded to 2 GB for $5. For the same fee, consumers also have the option to add 8 GB of MMC flash storage to the Orange Pi 3. There's a total of 4 models to choose from. Connectivity on the Orange Pi 3 includes 4 USB 3.0 Type A ports, 1 USB 2.0 port, and a micro USB 2.0 OTG on the go port with support for power input. However, micro USB power supplies aren't compatible with the Orange Pi 3. Therefore, consumers are encouraged to purchase a quality DC 5-volt 3 amp charger to power the Orange Pi 3. Shenzhen Sulong Software has equipped the Orange Pi 3 with HDMI 2.0A port with audio and HDCP 2.2 output and a composite video output. The Orange Pi 3 has an integrated microphone and a 3.5 millimeter jack for audio devices. The Orange Pi 3 connects to the internet via a gigabit Ethernet port based on the Realtek RTL8211 controller, or wirelessly via the built-in MPAC AP6256 module that provides Wi-Fi 802.11 AC and a Bluetooth 5.0 connectivity. The Orange Pi also comes with its own infrared receiver, mini PCIe 2.0 slot, and a 26-pin GPIO expansion header for connecting devices like sensors, motors, etc. There's also a 3-pin serial console, universal asynchronous receiver transmitter, header for debugging purposes. It's also compatible with Android 7.0 and Linux distributions such as Ubuntu, Debian, although these images aren't available yet at the time of writing. So this is a full-fledged computer in the palm of your hands. And there's a whole lot that you can do with this. Crypto mining is for ant mining, I should say ant miners. So you get hundreds of these. You can create your own ant miners. There's a whole lot of things that can be done with it as long as you customize the OS to your.
Really? Okay. I like to go on YouTube sometime and see what people do with their Raspberry Pi 3s, and I like to really get I forgot the word escapes me right now, but I like to see what people think about and build with these things. This orange, let's call this Orange Pi 3.
Well, Orange Pi is just a brand of the system on chip board. So Raspberry Pi is the original, but Orange Pi is just the alternative. So whatever people are doing with the Raspberry Pi, they're gonna be doing it with the Orange Pi too.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's just a competitor. All right.
Yeah.
Now, what have you seen or heard people do with their pies? Build with their pies.
Build arcade machines. Build what do you call it? Create their own little autonomous vehicles. You can use them as satellites. These cube-based satellites. A variety of functions, robots as well. It's just because remember, it's a small computer at the bare minimum. So
this is interesting. I want to build some with this thing.
Yeah, they're pretty cheap. So you can actually, it's not like you have to spend $1,000 on a computer to test it out. So you're spending $40, and you're getting basically a turnkey Android um, base base computers.
Yeah, it's just, man, I want to build something now. I
Yeah.
want to build something now. Just, because after you watch those videos for the word is inspiration I'm looking for. After you watch a couple videos for inspiration or read a couple things that people done with these things, you see the price and you think to yourself, wow, I want to build something now, because someone else inspiration may light the fire under you to create a variation of something else.
Hmm.
Man,
Yeah, people have made emulators out of them. PlayStation emulator, Dreamcast, Sega Dreamcast, Nintendo emulators. So
yeah, I saw that. Oh man.
I've seen people create garage door openers out of them. So what they do is they connect it to their Amazon Alexa, and then they can tell the Alexa, they can use Alexa's commands to it, and say garage door open, garage door close by voice instead of using a button on your car.
Yeah, because this it has that. What did it say here? It had forgot the wording he
Audio,
used. Yeah, yeah.
as an audio header.
Oh man, I want to build something.
Yeah, I think we should do a hangout just one night, just kind of kicking around, some
Yes.
Raspberry Pis. I think we'll do that.
Oh man, because this is the type of stuff that you get a kick out of doing. It's so fun.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a whole lot of things you can do. I know when I was doing some mentorship with NISB last year, they actually had a whole entire program based on that. So,
Hmm.
and these were kids using them. So,
Oh yeah, nice. This is very nice.
there's also a download from GitHub for blockchain. So, to be used on those Raspberry Pis. So,
Really? Okay. Okay.
so you could turn it into a node.
Oh, now we talking. Now we talking. Now we talking. All right.
Right, because it has a Wi-Fi adapter, has an Ethernet adapter, so it's always
Yeah.
connected to the internet. So it doesn't need a whole lot of power because JavaScript and blockchain doesn't require that much. It's just running HTML, or you can run some form of Java on top of it if you're using Linux. So you would have if you bought like 10 or 20 of them, you can create 10 or 20 nodes, and then have the nodes actually creating dividends. So there's a whole lot of things that can actually come from it, depending on how you want to design it out.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And each one have their own IP address, right?
Well, yeah, you can set your own IP addresses.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's the biggest thing because you need another. Each node need a new IP address. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
And so,
IPv6 is endless at this point. I mean, you're talking 100 billion
oh yeah, I'm
IPv6.
so. I am so. Oh yes. And imagine. Imagine. Okay. Is there a device where you can connect? Oh, how am I trying to say this? Using one monitor to monitor all of them at once because you stack them so high and you just want to monitor it. You
Yeah,
know.
well, you would SSH into it.
Okay. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're
You would
right. You're
SSH
right.
into it, so you wouldn't have to do all that. But you can create a dashboard through something like Elk, Elastic, Kibana, Elastic Logstash, and Kibana. You can set up your own dashboard, and
Hmm.
that dashboard will show you all the metrics of the nodes and stuff like that, and it's collecting all the data.
Hmm.
Or like we just covered in the article about basically building out, agritech farms. You would actually use these Raspberry Pis to control the sprinklers and everything else that goes with it. The amount of lighting that's necessary because it's the mini operating system. And this goes into what we talked about on the other hangout before about containerization. So running these small micro containers, these small virtual OSs to run simple functions. So you'll have one function that actually um, does one service and another function that does another service. You run multiple containers on it. Those things can run a dozen containers without any problem.
Hmm.
And in the containers, you can store your keys on these on these Raspberry Pis because if you're implementing blockchain on them, then you can actually connect them as you can actually aggregate them within the blockchain itself, so that they're actually authenticating to each other.
Yeah, I'm sold, man. I'm sold. We got a new subscriber. I want to say hello to Legion is one.
What's going on, man? All right, let's get to this article real quick. All right, this one is from TechSpot.com. MIT's 2D antenna turns Wi-Fi signals into power. While smartphones have advanced to the point where they are essentially many computers in our pockets, battery technology hasn't really kept up. But MIT researchers have taken the first steps toward a world where our headsets could be powered by Wi-Fi signals. Scientists from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology developed a 2D material that is based on existing rectifying antenna or rectenna devices. These capture AC electronic waves from the air and turn them into DC power. They tend to use silicon or gallium arsenide, making them rigid and suitable for powering small electronics. But the MIT version is only a few atoms thick, meaning it's flexible enough to be fabricated to large sizes. MIT used semiconductor material, um, molybdenum, uh, disulified MOS2, which is 3 atoms thick, to create the new rectenna. It's able to convert up to 10 gigahertz of wireless signals with around 30% efficiency. While that's higher than other flexible designs, it's still below efficiency of rigid rectifiers, which reach around 60%. The rectenna was able to generate around about 40 microwatts of power, which power when the exposed to typical Wi-Fi signals was around 150 microwatts. That's not enough power. That's not enough to power your smartphone, but it could light up LEDs or charge a low power SoC like a Raspberry Pi we just talked about, potentially making it ideal for Internet of Things (IoT) products, wearables, and small medical devices. The team now aims to improve efficiency and create more complex devices. Quote, what if we could develop electronic systems that we wrap around a bridge or cover an entire highway or the walls of our office and bring electronic intelligence to everything around us, said Thomas Palacios, director of MIT and Microsystems Technology Laboratories Center for Graphene Devices and 2D Systems, who co-founded the study. Quote, how do we how do you provide energy how do you provide energy for sorry quote how do you provide energy for those electronics? We have come up with a new way to power the electronic systems of the future by harvesting Wi-Fi technology in a way that's easily integrated into large areas to bring intelligence to every object around us. This is actually really interesting stuff because you think about a highway that has all of these lamps illuminating the road. Those things could be used for Wi-Fi signal power. So
Hello.
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Uh, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Now, this when I first read it, what came to my mind automatically was like a perpetual power source, but that's not it. It's mainly for with these small IoT devices that so it talked about an office setting, and you have a lot of IoT devices that draw small amounts of energy from whatever its power source is. But with a lot of IoT devices joining a small amount of energy, you create a large you get a situation where it's a lot of things drawing a lot of energy. So this would power those small IoT devices. That's what they're saying, right?
Hmm.
Which means it's almost like a negative, not negative, like a wash. So it go back to the office setting again. It talked about you can put these on the walls and do well IoT devices and these things on the walls and whatever else you want to do with it, and not take that increase in electrical bill that office may incur with this. And it was saying around a highway, you can put where if you have autonomous vehicles and you have all these IoT devices feeding information to autonomous vehicles, such as we covered weeks ago, a smart highway. This would actually power those IoT devices, so all that energy wouldn't be sucking power off the grid. This is what it's saying, right?
Not necessarily sucking power off the grid, but it's a way to continuously power your device that's in your hand. So you think about
Oh,
it's not so much about saving power, but it's how do you continuously keep a device on?
charge. Okay.
How do you deliver energy as a service?
Oh, energy as a service. Okay, that one
You have
word.
to be attached to the Wi-Fi network in order to actually benefit from it. So the privacy concerns about that is, well, how much data are you sharing with the Wi-Fi network that you're connected to, versus how much power are you going to get from it? How much benefit are you going to get from it? Um, Maybe if you're in your house, that might be fine, where you have a router from your select brand that is delivering power to your device. So you put it on the coffee table, you don't have to plug it up.
Hmm, that's an interesting idea. Well, this one, well, it now didn't have gotten more interesting. This invention. Huh. This is awesome, man.
Hmm.
Continuous power, keeping it your device always charged
Well,
by using. Go ahead.
I think you might be on speaker or something because there's a lot of feedback. But they're thinking, they're thinking forward, right? So what if you have all these autonomous vehicles going up and down the road, and they need to charge themselves in the midst that they're idle? Because you only generate electricity by braking. But what if you're idle? You're not moving. Now, if you're connected to a grid, that Wi-Fi power is being transmitted to the car and charging at the same time.
Okay, this is nice. Huh. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, this one is from Business Insider. We compared the $1,200 MacBook Air with the $500 Surface Go, and the results were a mess. I've been using MacBook Air laptops for roughly the last decade, give or take, without pause. I tested out the Microsoft Surface Go, a significantly less expensive laptop solution, against my MacBook Air. The results were kind of a mess. The majority of the stuff that I do on my MacBook Air is writing in or using the internet. I occasionally do some kind of heavy lifting, but nothing super processor intensive. most of what I'm doing is kind of power internet using. My first impressions of the Surface Go are that it looks and feels very similar to previous Surface products. The keyboard is maybe the most expensive hardware feature on it. It, in every other way, is relatively budget-looking version of Microsoft Surface tablet device. There's kind of a kickstand device on the back that you can position. It feels extremely strange to have a kind of like kickstand on your legs while it's not very adjustable to different heights. One thing that's really excellent about the Surface Go is that it has a micro SD slot that can expand the memory width, and that's super meaningful. It is perfectly capable, powering the internet. This article is poorly written. Power internet browsing, the kind of light lighter lifting that I'm usually doing. It's a lot less capable when that starts to get on the heavier side of things. If you can get over 10 or 15 tabs open in Chrome, if you got Spotify running at the same time, maybe you pull up YouTube video, things start to chug. Browsing is a little slow. You occasionally encounter the kind of lifting or the kind of thing where you go to load something or just I'm sorry, this article is so poorly written. I have a hard time understanding where he's really going with this. He doesn't do any benchmarks, but what do you think about Apple charging that much money for a MacBook versus what you can get um, with Microsoft Surface?
Well, we've talked about Apple mainly in their iPhone and their brand. Obviously, this ties right along with their brand. Um, they're charging you for the name, for the having the benefit to go around and say, "Hey, I purchased an Apple. What's this? The MacBook Air."
Mhm.
So they are charging you that premium. You have devices now such as the Microsoft Surface, Surface Go, and other Surface products that are catching wind, they're catching fire. You have Lenovo that is coming out with these ultra thin not MacBooks, laptops. You have HP that are coming out with these tablets and not tablets, but laptops that are competing in that genre of where the MacBook Air is competing, and they're giving them a go. They're doing it. It's like they're doing the same thing Samsung and these Android devices are doing to Apple, where they're charging less but giving you more features and options and a better phone. Or the same, they're giving you an Apple phone, but for cheaper. And these other companies are giving you a MacBook Air for cheaper. So Apple has we already said how Apple has to change their strategy. They have to do something because these competitors, A, have caught up with them, and B, are surpassing them. And Apple, with these competitors, they have now done that. Apple is still doing the same thing. Not only extent, not only are they doing the same thing, but they're charging you more for doing the same thing, and that's not going to cut it.
Now you've been a Surface owner for 7 days now. How's it been?
Oh, it's nice. I my previous laptop, which I'm still using, is a bigger screen. Um, it's smoother. The image is crisper. Um, it's lighter. I can't. I have the I have the Surface laptop, and I can't believe how thin it is. It's sleek. Got that one. The Windows logo is nice and perfect. It's nice. I've owned previous laptops were consisted of Alienware before Dell purchased them. Dell XPS, HP, um, another Dell, and this one, other than I would say this XPS and the Alienware, I would say this Microsoft Surface laptop ranks up with the higher end laptops I done paid for, and it's thinner, and it's I like it.
Hmm. Have you tested how long the battery can go for?
Yeah. Oh man, that battery. If I'm just doing the internet, the battery lasts way longer than my Dell XPS. Way longer. My Dell XPS, I have to always have it plugged up because the battery. And I'm not doing any gaming on it, anything. The battery just goes down. But on that thing right there, on I'm pointing to it as if people can see me, but on my Microsoft Surface, on my Surface laptop, if I'm just doing stuff, doing on the internet, reading articles, checking my email, just looking at YouTube videos for after a couple of hours, it's down to 85%. So I don't have to plug it up. I don't have to leave it plugged up.
It's cool.
Yeah. Now what did you think? I know that you said the article was poorly written, but what did you think about what he had to say about these two, about these two laptops?
They're not an apples to orange comparison, no pun intended. Um, the Surface Go is really meant for entry level, and the MacBook Air is more of a high performance, um, than high performance premium device. So I think what he's trying to say is that he used the Surface Go in reference to the MacBook Air that he already owned. So it wasn't like he got a MacBook Air for review; he already owned it. But the Surface Go was something that he made a conscious choice to actually select, um, to make that comparison. It's two apples to oranges, not the same. Now, if you wanted to compare, then what you would do is you compare the Surface tablet to that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
Surface Go is like an Android tablet. It's Microsoft's version of the Android tablet.
Hmm. Now I agree with what Christian had to say. Microsoft is trying to build up its hardware brand, and it's
Hmm.
doing a good job. They're clearly defined. Hey, this tablet is for this. This is for this. You can easily look and say, "Well, okay, I want this one." Um, I meant to say clearly defined distinctions on what you may need. I've been hearing good stuff about their headphones. Microsoft is reinventing themselves, and I think they're going to be in the future, in a not too distant future, they're going to be the Apple, and Apple's going to be Microsoft. It's like they're going to switch places.
Not necessarily.
Now, why do you say that?
Microsoft is a software company, through and through. Apple is a hardware company. The problem with that comparison is that you're saying that they're switching places. They're switching places only in a certain point. Um, Microsoft has to sell the hardware to because they have the software. So in order to keep these software services going, or to keep their platform going, they have to actually sell some hardware to go with it because other brands are not doing very well at selling Microsoft-based systems. Lenovo, Dell, those type of systems are not really um, that great. If you really want to be honest about it, you have a variety of systems to choose from, but too many crappy systems will hurt your brand.
Hmm.
But Apple doesn't. Apple is not a software-driven company. They actually have to build their OS to work with their hardware because it's all closed source. So Apple would never be a software company because that's not their game. They don't have Microsoft Office. They don't have their own operate Office suite or their own back end services that they sell off. They don't make money that way. They make money off of gadgets. They're a gadget first company. Microsoft is a business solutions, business services company. OS company.
Now, how about this? Only in perception, not when I say only perception, pertain to what I said, not what you said. Them switching in perception as if say, um, I understand that there are two different styles
Hmm.
of companies, but in perception, Apple had that brand perception of, you buy an iPhone, it's almost like, if you back in the '70s you want a car, you buy a GM. That brand perception will change in the future. So, how about that?
To a certain extent, yeah, but Alienware still makes good products. Um, and people custom build their PCs. That's why PCs are popular, because of the
Hmm.
custom build aspect. With Apple, it's not like that, right? They Apple sells a not a totally integrated solution for you, and you don't have to do anything. It it's almost lazy. It's almost for lazy people who can't think for themselves. So they actually sell it to those people.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have to
They
understand
they
that.
don't unless they can actually merge all iOS and Mac OS X. For the most part, they're almost dead in the water because the two. So the iOS has half a million apps in their app store, but then when you come to the OS, Mac OS, there's only a few apps on Mac OS that you would actually use in your daily driven life. So Safari, iTunes, video editing, and maybe a few scientific academia applications. But outside of that, like the article was saying, he can run the same kind of apps on the Microsoft Surface now because everything is
Mm.
SaaS based. It's software as a service. So all you have to do is have a web browser that you can log into, and now you have access to the same application. So what's the point of buying the Mac?
Mm. Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, next article is from TheVerge.com. Apple blocks Facebook from running its internal iOS apps. Apple has shut down Facebook's ability to distribute internal iOS apps, from early releases of the Facebook app to basic tools like the launch menu. A person familiar with the situation tells The Verge that early versions of Facebook, Instagram Messenger, and other pre-release dog food beta apps have stopped working, as have other employee apps like one of the transportation. Facebook is treating this as a critical problem internally, we're told, as the affected apps simply don't launch on employees' phones anymore. The shutdown carries in response to news that Facebook has been using Apple's program for internal app distribution to track teenage customers with a research app. That app, revealed yesterday by TechCrunch, was distributed outside the App Store using Apple's Enterprise program, which allows developers to use special certificates to install more powerful apps onto iPhones. Those apps are only supposed to be used by a company's employees. And Facebook has been distributing its tracking apps to customers. Facebook later said it won't shut down the app. It would shut down the app. This poses a huge issue for Facebook. While Apple provides other tools a company use to install apps internally, Apple's enterprise program is the main solution for widely distributing internal apps and services. In an email, a Facebook spokesperson said, quote, I can confirm that this affects our internal apps. In a statement given to Recode, Apple said that Facebook was in, sorry, give me a second.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing today? Hope you all are enjoying the show. Uh-huh. What's going on, Paul Bryan, Charlie Ross, Jake Charles, Anti Gravity. Who else is in here? Charlie, you got two Surface Pros. All right. What you think about the Surface Pros?
In a statement given to Recode, Apple said that Facebook was in a clear breach of their agreement with Apple. Any developer that breaches that agreement, Apple said, has their distribution certificates revoked, which is what we did in this case to protect our users and their data. Apple declined to comment on shutting down all of Facebook's internal apps in an email to The Verge. Revoking to Revoking a certificate not only stops apps from being distributed on iOS, but it also stops apps from working. And because internal apps by the same organization or developer may be connected to a single certificate, it can lead to immense headaches like the one Facebook now finds itself in, where a multitude of internal apps have been shut down. Apple and Facebook have already been bickering over privacy, but this is the first instance of Apple taking action that directly shuts down some of Facebook's activities. Last March, Apple CEO Tim Cook criticized Facebook's handling of the Cambridge Analytic data sharing scandal, saying, quote, I wouldn't be in this situation if he were running the company. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg later said the comments were extremely glib, and spoke of Apple as a company that, quote, works hard to charge you more. Two of the two titans not being happy with each other. I find this interesting that that Facebook would even do something like this after the Cambridge Analytica scandal, after losing data before in one of their breaches. I just find this very interesting. It seems that Facebook is just very rampant um, with privacy issues, where they're always spying on you. I personally don't have Facebook installed on my phone, on my Chromebook. I don't want anything to do with Facebook. Period. But I think that Facebook has a lot of cultural issues internally, where they seem to feel that taking data from other people, unbeknownst to them, is the way to do business, and that is coming back to haunt them.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see an exodus from Facebook because of everything that's coming out. They've been doing, they have done, and continue to do when they've been caught for doing the things they have done. They Mark Zuckerberg went to what was the Congress or Supreme Court about that Cambridge Analytica. He went there, you know, trying to downplay, trying to damage control everything, and and then you have this. I don't. Hey, I have no explanation for it. I'm not going to stick up for them. I don't have Facebook on my phone either. I don't even use my Facebook. I used to use my Facebook profile, my Facebook account, to keep up with people's birthdays. But now, nah, I don't even do that now. And imagine what could come, what could possibly, if Facebook is doing all this, and people are using their credit cards, debit cards on Facebook. What type of breaches, or not you know what, I didn't mean to use the word breaches, but what they're doing with that information is what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, they said they're tracking teenagers.
No, I'm saying outside of this, just if they're doing this, if this came out, then when you think about what else are they doing?
Right. All the more reason not to own Facebook at all. Like I said therefore I don't use their product. I don't see the value in it personally. I think YouTube is the future, and maybe Facebook is starting to feel the pressure that they have to add more users, they have to track more behavior, they have to collect more data, they have to sell the data to third party in order to make revenue. And at this point, it's starting to seem like they're flailing internally on what to do with Facebook as a product.
Yeah, and also they have Instagram. So what are they doing in that space? Because Instagram is known for certain things. Um,
Well, Facebook didn't create Instagram, so the difference between Facebook and Instagram is that Instagram was created on its own outside of Facebook, and
yeah,
that's what
but
Facebook made the acquisition. But what they do with Facebook, I mean, with Instagram is a little bit different. Are they sharing people's pictures? Are they, what are they doing in terms of? I know personally uh, that they are collecting what you click on to drive advertisement in that area. I think that's pretty well known. Now, what they're doing with your information from Instagram, I don't know, but it seems to me that most of this information that they're tracking because of the text-based um, interaction on Facebook versus the pictorial image-based interaction is a little bit different. So if you like, um, some kind of car on Instagram, they may drive car advertisements to you. That's one thing, and they may sell that um, data collected that you clicked on this advertisement for a small fee to another third party vendor. But on Facebook itself, if you're involved in political theater, black politics or anything like that, then that can be compromising to you because what happens when that information gets sold off to a third party vendor and now they're tracking all these black people.
hmm. And a lot of people don't even notice or even think out this much out the box. It don't comprehend to them. Oh, okay. And Facebook user number is it rivals most countries in this world. Their subscriber base is what I'm trying to say. Rivals most countries. So uh, we'll continue to find out, I guess.
I think what's going to happen is that people are going to create their own platforms, something more decentralized. I think you're going to start to see more and more of that in the next year or so. And people will just walk away from Facebook.
Well, you have a few decentralized platforms out there. They're not as popular right now, but I would, because I know that, I would say you're right. I would have to agree with that.
All right, next article. All right, next article is from TheGuardian.com. A black eye for Apple. FaceTime bug shakes faith in iPhone security. It was a tenfold hack had a conspiracy theorist wireless prognostication come true. The trusty and beloved iPhones that a company uses to work, to bed, and even to toilet suddenly transform into an all-purpose spying device, transmitting audio and video to anyone with your phone number or email. Quote, this is the nightmare scenario, said Marcus Carey, a cybersecurity expert and author of Tribes of Hackers. It does incite privacy fears because this is the same scenario that most people fear from the US government and other regimes. The bug, which was publicized Monday, transmitted audio and, under certain circumstances, video to a caller despite the recipient not having accepted the call. It was triggered when an initial caller added a third person to the FaceTime call. Though Apple has yet to issue a software patch, the company has disabled group chatting on FaceTime, preventing users from further exploiting the bug. But the major flaw in FaceTime has raised concerns about Apple's security practices, just as the company reports disappointing financial results and reports that a teenager and his mother spent days attempting to alert Apple to the problem have also raised questions about the company's procedures for receiving reports of vulnerabilities. Michael Thompson, an Arizona attorney whose identity was confirmed by the Wall Street Journal, began posting about Michelle Thompson, sorry, began posting about her son's discovery of the bug on Facebook and Twitter on January 20th, 8 days before Apple took action. Quote, my son just found a major flaw in Apple's new iOS that allows you to hear another person in the vicinity of their iPhone or iPad. Thompson wrote on Facebook. We just submitted the bug report to Apple and are waiting to hear back. We won't provide the details since it's a major security risk, but it's unbelievable that my 14-year-old figured this out. Thompson made numerous attempts to alert Apple to the problem, first through social media and later through the company's customer service system, according to the journal. She eventually went so far as to register a developer in order to submit a report through Apple's bug bounty program. And I don't want to read too much more into this because it's just a bunch of bickering. But Facebook with their security labs, and now you have Apple. You like owning that iPhone there, Lionel?
You funny. All right, all right. It's good for the moment, for the time being, but I guarantee you one thing: I'm not getting another Apple between the gouging mortgage price that they charge you and the instability of this FaceTime. No, I'm not about to pay to get spied on. Goodness. Mm. This is like some, man, talk about soap operas, boy. This is some good stuff, right? I mean, good and like some juicy information, but
Mm-hmm.
Apple can't catch a break, man. Between them saying late last year that they're going to stop um, reporting their sales figures, then them charging outrageous prices to their phones, closing up a Apple store in Chicago to um, their stock price tanking, to reports coming out that they're not doing so well in selling their devices. 6% of their revenue come from the iPhone and it's not selling. To now this, they can't catch a break, man.
So typically, what happens is you blame the leadership, right? So you blame Tim Cook, but really Tim Cook really doesn't have much to do with it. But then again, he doesn't do much for the company. Um, it's one of those things that Apple the the bar for excellence is so high for Apple that um, any sort of flaw is going to catch attention. This in particular is a biggie because what you're talking about doing is spying on a spouse or eavesdropping on a spouse or um, and they said you can even use somebody's email to do something like this. So now you're talking about people who can create stalking issues. A person that you may not want to talk to can actually listen in on what you're doing in the background, whether you're in the bathroom or you're gossiping about somebody behind their back and backbiting and things of that nature. That opens up a lot of problems. And I personally don't own an iPhone, and I'm glad that I don't. But good luck to those who do own them. If I was an iPhone owner right now, I would be looking to my nearest cell phone provider to try to trade in my device for an Android device.
Well, I'm not gonna say we, but most people can't because they owe they owe on their Apple iPhone. They owe the same amount. They owe, I would say, most people owe because I know people that get a new iPhone every year, and to me, that was ridiculous. And when my contract is over every 2 years, I may get another one, but they do the continuous, whatever that is called. People owe as much on their iPhone than it costs to just get a one like a 6 plus, a One Plus, So maybe they can't. Maybe they got to ride the storm out until they are able to get another one.
Well, most people who get out of their iPhone usually go to a Samsung.
Mm. Samsung or Android?
Samsung is Android.
Well, when I mean Android, I mean like, do they go directly to Samsung, the
Yeah,
hardware?
that's the number one alternative device to the iPhone right now is the Samsung Galaxy. That's why it's so popular. Better screen, better user experience. Not so much a better user experience, I should say, but it's the most user friendly interface on the Android market. What happens with Android devices
Really?
is that everybody creates their own custom interface,
Mm-hmm.
and what happens there is that Samsung for years have mimicked the iPhone's user interface. So
Oh,
it was so
smart.
simple. It was so simple for a person to go from an iPhone to a Galaxy that it actually got Samsung in trouble. So that's when Apple sued them for violating the art of an iPhone because the interface was so similar.
That's smart. That's cleverly smart.
Hmm.
Wow. I'm out because I see the Samsung Galaxy S10 and all that is coming out. It looks like a behemoth. It's huge, but now that I know it has that ease and that OS ease is just so simple and you ain't got to worry about I can change this thing to 1,001 ways the way I want. I don't want all that. I just
Hmm.
want something simple. You know, uh, now that I know that, I'm going to look at the Samsung Galaxy.
Well, see, then you're the target market of what Apple uh, pitches their product to. What you just said, I want something simple. Well, that's where the iPhone comes in. That's where MacBooks come in. That's where the whole entire Apple ecosystem comes in. People who buy Android devices don't want simple. They want complex. They want to feel like something like it's a death trap, like it's going to kill them or something like that. Same thing in the way they drive their cars. They usually drive a manual transmission or they drive something um, very risky, like a Volkswagen GTI or some form of high performance Mustang, GT or something like that. They always drive something very edgy. Android users are very edgy people.
Hmm. I'm gonna I'm gonna look at this Samsung Galaxy.
Hmm.
What they call it, the phablet? Any of the phablet or
That's the
something?
that's the Note. So the
Oh, that's a
Galaxy
no.
Note
Okay.
is the biggest Android device that they sell, but the Galaxy S series is actually their flagship, not their flagship, but their highest volume selling device.
Okay.
All right, this next one is from BusinessInsider.com. Another Apple employee from China has been charged with stealing self-driving car secrets. The FBI has charged an Apple employee with stealing trade secrets from the company's secretive Project Titan, its self-driving car division. NBC's Bay Area affiliate first reported on Tuesday, citing a criminal complaint. Project Titan has been a subject of speculation since it launched in 2014. It was initially believed to be working on an electric car, but executive hires in 2016 pointed toward autonomous driving. It has recently undergone the major reshuffling as Apple has laid off 200 employees tied to the project prior to the project earlier this month. According to CNBC, the unsealed FBI affidavit said Apple hired Jinsong Chen, a Chinese national, in June as a hardware engineer for its self-driving car project. He aroused suspicion when fellow employees saw him taking photos. Apple then asked to look at his personal devices and found, quote, over 2,000 files containing confidential and proprietary Apple material, including manual schematics and diagrams, backed up on a personal hard drive in violation of Apple's policies, the affidavit said. According to CNBC, the affidavit said Chen said the images were in insurance policy because he was applying to other jobs after being placed on an Apple performance improvement plan in December. But Apple found he had collected information before then. Chen told Apple he was applying for positions inside the company, but it learned he also applied to two outside jobs, including one with a direct competitor in autonomous driving in China, and it suspended him without pay on January 11th. The affidavit said he was arrested one day before he was due to fly to China. NBC Bay Area reported. An attorney for Chen, Daniel Olmos, declined to comment. Chen is the second Chinese Apple employee to be charged with stealing trade secrets in the past 6 months. In July, federal agents stopped a former Apple employee named Xiangling Sheng at, at the San Jose airport after he bought what authorities describe as a last-minute ticket to China. His indictment alleged he had a confidential 25-page document with schematic drawings of circuit board of an autonomous vehicle. Zhang is also being represented by Olmos, who said he had pleaded not guilty to theft of trade secrets. The journal reported. The arrests come against the backdrop of a trade war between U.S. and China, and charges brought by the U.S. against Huawei, a Chinese telecommunications firm. On Tuesday, the U.S. formally requested the extradition of Huawei's chief financial officer, Meng Wanzhou, after charging Huawei with violating U.S. sanctions on Iran and stealing trade secrets from T-Mobile. Apple did not immediately respond to the request. Comment from Business Insider. This is mega.
Go ahead, man. I'll give you the microphone first.
This is mega. I want to be upfront and say that I work in cybersecurity, so I've seen things like this happen over the course of my career, and insider threats are definitely a major issue for every company developing products. That being said, this opens up more to what Apple was doing and why Apple may have shut this whole entire operation down. They know they've been compromised. No way they can get their product to market. There's no way that these two people were the only ones there. Industrial espionage is a team operation, meaning that there's at least there's probably dozens of insiders within Apple itself.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, these guys had to be much smarter than what this article is alluding to. These are nationals, meaning that they look out for the best interests of their nation state. Something that Black people can learn a lot from, in terms of being, in terms of having integrity. They already got this information off onto the not to the dark web, but to whoever their higher ups were. So whoever they were working for, whether it was Huawei or some other Xiaomi or some other company, this information already got to them. Apple more than likely shut this whole operation down because they find out they've been compromised, and there was no way they can get their product to market in the time fashion that they needed to while being compromised because it's a waste of time now because you've already been exposed.
Wow. So you can almost say that they not single handedly, they stunted Apple from becoming an even bigger company. Because if this wouldn't have happened, Apple, we would have at least heard more um, information ahead, more articles come out about Apple's self-driving technology stack for cars,
Hmm.
which would have drove up Apple's um, stock price, made them
Hmm.
more of a valuable company, and they wouldn't have had to charge thousand, $1,500, $2,000 for iPhones. So not only does this have domino effects, but they you can say they put Apple in this position of having to go through all this.
Right.
Wow, they so they got infiltrated heavy
Hmm.
for them to just shut down. Wow, I can imagine what their security like is like now on that campus.
Well, I mean, they're monitoring all the employees. That's for sure. The article even points to that narrative that there's a potential that they're watching all the employees now because you can back up your phone to the cloud or you can back it up to USB thumb drive like this guy did. Um, there's there's no way that these guys kept this data on their phone and was like, well, I'm just going to get on the flight and just leave the country. I don't think so. You put that somewhere else. There's a third place, cold storage, that you place this at, and that you allowed somebody else to get access to it. This is a team operation. This isn't some individual doing this on their own.
Mm, mm. A quick Dropbox dump can be uploaded from somewhere else.
Not even just there. They probably pipe that in to some Amazon Web Services or something like that, and then had somebody from their nation state go in there and download that information and then take off. They handed that off. It's what we call lateral moves. So just like in football, you can pass it back to somebody, or do what we call flea flicker. They do that in espionage as well. So they kick that stuff off to the next person and then let them hand it off and then take over the operation.
Now, do you think this will prevent Apple from hiring any more Chinese native, not even native or um, Chinese people?
No, that would be considered a violation of equal employment opportunities. So they won't put themselves in that position.
Mm.
But they'll probably do a more vigorous background check on people coming from Southeast Asia.
Repeat what the lesson you said. But you said they'll probably do what?
A more vigorous background check on people coming from Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Because it's not just China that's very strong in espionage. The Philippines is strong. South Korea is strong. Japan is strong. Um,
Mm.
Indonesia is getting up there now. Malaysia is getting up there. Any country that's involved in the G20, rest assured that they have operations going, espionage operations going. They have a vested interest in boosting their economy too. So they're looking at it from that perspective. Russia has plenty of those type of operations going on in the U.S. I mean, and I'm not saying anything that's magical or pulling this out of thin air. This is happening in real time. This has been going on since the Cold War.
Mm.
That Tu-160 bomber was actually that the Russians have was actually an American product. The
Oh,
KGB infiltrated. I want to say it's Douglas or um, I don't think it was Lockheed. I forget which company it was. Maybe Paul Bryant might know this, but they infiltrated that operation and took the planes back to Moscow and built that plane. That's why they have it, and Americans don't.
mm.
What the Americans have is a B-1 Lancer. That's the closest thing that they have to it. That's one of the variations.
Wow.
Same thing with the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was compromised by the KGB. They infiltrated that whole operation and took the plans back to Moscow, and then they created their own atomic weapon because they knew that the Americans were working on something to take them out. So industrial espionage is a very common factor in from a nation state perspective. So
Now, listening to you say all that, the things we talk about, coming from a person not knowing that all of this is intertwined, such as the economics, the what these nationals did with Apple and the geopolitics. From a person not knowing, not or don't want to believe that all of this is intertwined. Geopolitics affect business and industrial business.
mhm.
I at one point in time I didn't understand the correlation. Not I didn't say I didn't believe it, but I didn't know the correlation. But now, just listening to what you were saying and everything I've learned over the past few months, I I see, I understand now.
Mhm.
Everything affects. This is some big stuff.
Yeah, Paul Bryant in the chat says it's McDonnell Douglas and General Dynamics. Both firms had joint venture, so he knows what I'm talking about. That there was a compromise on that by the KGB. They were able to get in there and actually get those operations, get the schematics of those operations. I know at Gillette, you can't bring your phone inside the facility. You have to check your phone at the door, and that's been that way for 25 years since cell phones had came to the marketplace. You can't bring a cell phone in there.
I was looking at, I want to get off topic, but when you said that, it made me think of this. I was looking at like a mini documentary from RT. They was doing something on North Korea, and they went to I want to say opera, and they said that they had to check their phones at the door. You
Mm-hmm.
know, anywhere um, Kim Jong Un was at, you couldn't bring no cell phone in, no wireless transmission. You had to use all hardwired transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the level of security that these places think of and have.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me get to the next article. I was going to bring up another article about Tesla, but I can't seem to find it right now. If I find it, I'll definitely bring it up.
Uh-huh.
All right, this one is from theverse.com again. Ford's on-demand bus service Chariot is going out of business. Chariot, the microtransit service owned by Ford, is going out of business, according to a company-wide email obtained by the San Francisco Examiner. The on-demand bus service will cease operation February 1st, the other day. A spokesperson for the company confirmed the news to Verge. CEO Chariot said in a statement, in today's mobility landscape, The wants and needs of customers in cities are changing rapidly. As those changes continue, it has become clear that the mobility service delivered by Chariot over the past 5 years will not be a sustainable solution going forward. We apologize for the inconvenience this may cause Chariot's riders and our enterprise customers. We are committed to ensuring our customers are aware of the decision and have time to make alternative transportation arrangements. Chariot's first launch in San Francisco in 2014 as part of a spate of bus startups that use algorithms to develop transit routes based on user demand. Using the app, customers could book a seat in one of the company's blue and white shuttle vans for around $4 a trip. It was billed as a cheaper, if slightly less convenient, alternative to ride hailing apps like Uber and Lyft. The company sold to Ford in 2016 for $65 million, after which it expanded into markets such as Austin, Texas, New York City, and the UK. In 2017, Chariot featured prominently in Ford's presentations at both CES and Detroit Auto Show. Then CEO Mark Fields said Ford would increasingly address the transportation needs of customers in a variety of ways, and that Chariot was a key component of putting that strategy into place. According to the Examiner, Chariot employed around 385 people in San Francisco and about 625 employees throughout the U.S. The company has operations in Austin, Seattle, New York, and Los Angeles, among other cities. But microtransit, ha- private microtransit was never an easy sell, especially with the ubiquity of ride-hailing services like Uber and Lyft. And Chariot's closure is the latest in a string of failures. Bridge, another on-demand service supported by Ford, went belly up in 2017 after failing to close a deal with an unnamed car company. Bridge was actually a Boston-based microtransit service here, so I've used it once. So Chariot had been struggling for a while, especially in New York City, according to data viewed by Streets Blog. Many of the vans, it seemed, were driving around mostly empty. Even on its best performing weeks, Chariot's fleet of 25 or so vans only serviced around 1,000 riders total, or about 9 riders per vehicle per day. The overall average is much lower. Just 5 riders per day. Just 5 riders. Just 5 riders per vehicle per day. The service has routes, including a Greenpoint Dumbo run and a Williamsburg Midtown route. Ford remains bullish about its mobility investments. A spokesperson for the automaker declined to comment. Last month, the company acquired Spin, an electric scooter sharing service. What do you think about this, Lionel?
I never heard of Cherry. Obviously, I don't think it was in Chicago or in my area of Chicago. Um, I know Ford and other car manufacturing companies. I want to get into the autonomous vehicle, and every time we hear about that, we say, "Well, the article says that these manufacturers want to get into the taxi or the ride-hailing aspect of autonomous vehicles." Now, I don't know how. I'm thinking if this service didn't work out, and I understand it's a bus, it has different routes compared to just sedans, car pickups, autonomous vehicles. How will this foresee what Ford plans to get into in terms of the ride hailing or taxi service aspect of autonomous vehicles? Now, as far as them purchasing span, we went over that a couple months ago. I don't see how this. I don't think this will be in my mind. If I'm not thinking about anything else, missing anything else, will be a foresee of that span, that first mile, last mile aspect of span in the e-scooters. Um, Saying, well, it may not be as fruitful as they thought, but I far as Chariot, I never heard of this service. I didn't know this even existed. It
Mhm.
sounded on the surface as well, yeah, it sounded plausible, but um, after the dust settled, go through the reasons why it wasn't as successful as people thought.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's too early for microtransit. It has to get to a point where people don't have cars. And that probably won't be for another 5 or 10 years. But it's interesting to see that they even made an attempt. Um, and the thing is, they don't have designated bus stops. It's really based on GPS location of the rider itself. So if if I'm 2 or 3 miles away from the next rider, then we have to go around the world to get that next rider from one rider to the next. That doesn't seem feasible. Like there has to be more to it. It has to operate like a Boeing Dreamliner or something like that. It has to have luxury in order to justify why a person would want to use something like this at this point. Um, Especially if you're just trying to get from point A to point B, that it doesn't seem all that beneficial, right? I'd rather just go pick up a scooter for $1.50 a mile and just ride that thing, um, and then drop it off where I need to, and I don't have to sit in traffic, right? But if I'm going from one state to the next, then that might make sense. So this could easily eat into Greyhound and the rest of these Chinese buses that you pay $10 to go to New York, but you have to use a crappy bathroom that's on the bus. There's no food. Um, you're sharing it with people that you don't know or people who are not all that friendly. Um, it's just not a pleasant experience, and I think that in order for microtransit um, in order for microtransit to be feasible, it also has to have an experience that goes with it. You can't just say, well, it's only $4. Well, yeah, it's $4, but I mean, what am I getting from that?
Yeah, because if you getting crappy service and crappy this and crappy that, that's a deterrent right there. I don't care if it's $4, or if even if it's free, it's crappy. I don't feel like doing that. So I understand where you're coming from with that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next article is from electrek.com. Harley Davidson tests new electric dirt bike and scooter at X Games. Harley Davidson has been in the news a lot lately for their ambitious electric vehicle plans. Last month, last month, the company not only revealed the pricing and range specs on the Livewire, their Halo model electric motorcycle, but also unveiled two new concept vehicles, electric vehicles. Now we are seeing the first public test of the electric scooter and electric dirt bikes concepts, which Harley Davidson brought to the X Games Aspen 2019. While it doesn't have a name yet, the EV concept might not technically qualify as a dirt bike. It's on the lighter end of the spectrum, which puts it closer towards electric mountain bike. It is certainly no Alta Motors dirt bike. Um, Instead, it seems to handle like a lightweight and nimble off-roader. However, Harley Davidson's concept still appears to have plenty of torque and power to spare as it rips wheelies up and down the snowy track in Aspen. So let me play this video real quick. Real quick. That shit looks badass. Yeah, that looks badass. What do you think about this, I know?
Is this thing lighter than gas powered? Do you
Yeah.
know? Okay, now that combined with the torque, I would imagine it would be fantastic for X Games. The X Games. This would have been a good one for complex. The X Games, they high flying, triple jumps, things like that. You got that lightweight and it torque to drive you in them flips, uh, curves, all that. I would imagine this would be great for that.
Hmm. The only problem is the range, right? So dirt bikes can usually go for quite some time before they needed a refill, whereas these electric bikes, the problem is their range is too short.
Hmm. Just in a competitive setting, I can't even say that now. Now I'm starting to say it. Hmm. Okay,
Hmm.
but as long as they work, I would imagine they would offer some compelling and exciting acrobatic flips and things of that nature.
You mean that dirt bike?
Yes,
Well, it's still a prototype. It's not even they don't even have the name for it. So
by being lightweight, and a torque, I would imagine those two things put together would be more compelling than other.
to a certain extent, it would be if you're just doing it for a stunt bike. But if you're using that for a daily ride and a
Oh
daily
no,
driver, no, that's not going to be sustainable.
yeah, that's what I was saying in a stunt bike setting, not every day, not these guys that's on the street riding a dirt bike in the middle of the road. They get caught by the police easy.
Right. It only takes their battery to run low before they get caught. So
Yeah, just follow them.
just
That's
keep
all you got to do.
yeah, just keep chasing them. All right, this one is from Forbes.com. Electric scooters and micromobility. Here's everything you need to know. The rise of micromobility companies has been well documented over the last few years with companies like Ofo and Mobike in China and City Bike and Jump Bikes in the US, providing consumers with convenient options for last mile transportation. All these companies have gone on to raise venture capital and be acquired, showcasing both the consumer and investor demand for the last mile transportation solutions. In 2018, this micromobility trend was re-energized with the emergence of the shared and dockless electric scooter. Pioneered by Lime and Bird in the U.S., these e-scooters quickly found such strong product market fit that Bird and Lime became the fastest ever U.S. companies to reach billion-dollar valuations, with each achieving this milestone within a year of inception. The trend of e-scooter companies quickly scaling into large companies has continued into 2019 with Grin and Yellow announcing a merger to form the strongest micromobility competitor in Latin, Latin America. Latin America, less than a year after they were founded. I don't know why they didn't put Latin America. Moreover, additional e-scooter companies from all over the world, Skip, Spin, Scoot, Pop Scoot, Beam, Tier Mobility, Wind Mobility, Void Technology, Vogo, Dot, and Flash all recently announced large capital raises. In Europe alone, five e-scooter companies have emerged and raised over $150 million of capital since the start of 2018. This is just a chart showing the valuations and investors for e-scooters. This is rated in millions of dollars. So Lime has $455 million. Bird has 415. Green and Yellow has 270. Vogo has 110. Flash has 63. Void Technology has 53. Skip has 31. Tier Mobility has 29. Dot has 23. Wind Mobility has 22. Spin has 8. Beam has 6.4.
Okay, so Bird still as that unicorn as we thought. Lime is a no, who Lyft owns Lime, or no, Lyft don't own Lime.
Uber.
Golly, man, these things getting confusing. Um, okay, okay, all right, my bad for interrupting.
No, I mean this is actually a very good article for those who are new to micro transportation and micro mobility. Um, this is actually a primer, so I won't go over the whole thing because it's actually pretty long. But it's actually a really good read.
Man, this is getting serious. This micro mobility. I know
Hmm.
we've been talking about it for the past couple months, but this is getting it's we've seen the evolution of this thing ramping up. The first mile, last mile. You just need to get somewhere quick. You know, you don't want to catch the public transportation, call a Uber or anything. You right outside the building. Up there's a I wouldn't say it's e-scooter sitting on the ground, but it may be somewhere where on a corner like these bikes are at. Get that real quick, skate across town or to your next destination. By the time you get there, it would have equaled the same amount of time you waiting to get a Uber or a Lyft or wait for a bus to come, or
Hmm.
So it's quick. It's there. It's if you think about it, it's taking advantage of that instant gratification.
Right, and there's other applications to it too. If for kids going to school and things like that. So college campuses.
Yeah, right. It's pretty cool.
All right, this next one is from CryptoBriefing.com. Ethereum myth busted. Apples to oranges on 51% attacks. Recently, Richard Gendo Brown, CTO of Quarter, a published an argument that Ethereum is not prepared for enterprise adoption because of the recent 51% attack on Ethereum Classic. Brown's argument is paraphrased as follows: the Ethereum network's utility to enterprise blockchains rests in the ability of those consortia blockchains to anchor their data in the public mainnet. By doing so, private blockchains can feel secure about the immutability and safety of their data if it's regularly committed to global distributed airtight blockchain. However, the recent success of 51% attack on Ethereum Classic demonstrates that the public Ethereum mainnet is not safe, and therefore enterprises should not trust Ethereum. The vulnerabilities that led to 51% attack against ETC cannot be replicated on Ethereum network. To conflate the two different technologies suggests either one, a fundamental misunderstanding of blockchain technology, or two, a marketing effort to capitalize on the confusion of the nuances of different blockchain systems to promote one's own platform. Brown is a well respected thought leader at Quarter and in blockchain and enterprise DLT. Therefore, we will assume Brown saw a marketing opportunity to sow misunderstanding and doubt, and he took it. A quick primer on 51% attack. 51%. A 51% attack is the type of attack performed on proof of work blockchain to obstruct or change probabilistic uh, finality, or the moment at which an operation block is agreed to be complete and immutable. And proof of work, a majority of the miners on a blockchain are incentivized to act honestly, which means they are, which means they mine off largest the largest chain of blocks. If they don't act honestly and continue mining off a different chain, they waste energy and money on mining blocks that will never be recognized by the rest of the network. So their block rewards are worthless. A majority of attacks occurs when a single party accumulates 51% of a blockchain network hash rate. To do this, they must expend energy to own that hash rate. After which they are able to build a chain of blocks that is longer than one upon which the rest of the network is building. When the malicious actors release that longer chain to the network, the rest of the miners continue acting honestly. They start mining off that new chain. The the issue is, of course, that is malicious. That is the malicious actors built that chain themselves and could change the record of any transaction in the previous blocks they built. When they release the chain to the mainnet, their version of the transaction will become the truth. ETC is the largest blockchain by market cap to have been subjected to a successful 51% attack, but other networks, including Verge and Bitcoin Gold, have experienced the same. In all of these cases, the events were the events were double spend attacks targeted against centralized exchanges. Attacks would trade a coin for that currency on the exchange. Then 51% attack. Then the 51% attack the network and to change the block history to show that they never traded those coins, meaning they would be left with the amount in their bank account and those coins back in their exchange accounts. This is what happened with the ETC in early January 2019. An attacker double spent 200,000 ETC by changing the records of roughly 100 previously confirmed blocks. What do you think about this article, Lyle?
I understand what they're getting at. For those that don't know, the difference between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, the article went over it back in, I said, our article stated May 2016. There was a fundraiser for a project using Ethereum smart contracts, but the smart contract that was used had an exploit in it, and someone exploited the exploit, lack of a better term, use of words there, and they drained the smart contract of the funds, so they stole the money. Now, the developers of Ethereum at the time, Vitalik Buterin being one of them, they said, "Well, we're gonna reverse that, so to give the investors back their money." Some people was okay with it. Some people wasn't okay with it. The people that wasn't okay with it felt that it's blockchain is immutable, irreversible. You should abide by the the laws of the immutable blockchain. So what they did was they kept the unreversed blockchain and said, "Well, we're going to go our own way and create Ethereum Classic." The reverse blockchain was kept as Ethereum. So that's the difference between the two. Now, what he's saying, the person, I understand what they're saying. He's saying because Ethereum Classic had a 51% attack, meaning they're proof of work blockchains. If you control 51% 50% or more of that blockchain, you can control the blockchain. You read what a 51% attack is. I'm not going to go back into that. He's saying because that'll happen to Ethereum Classic, then it can happen to Ethereum. But the thing is, Ethereum Classic has less people mining on its blockchain, meaning it's less decentralized, which means it takes a lot less effort, time, money, and power to create a 51% tag on Ethereum Classic than it does on Ethereum, which means, well, Ethereum has more people on its blockchain, making it more decentralized, which means you will have to um, expend more money, more energy, and to perform a 51% attack on Ethereum's blockchain. It's pretty much infeasible. You spending too much money to take control of that blockchain. That's why it's they will on that 51% attack is it's just unfeasible. So that's what he's saying, and I understand what the article is coming from.
Mhm.
In essence,
Sounds.
they're right. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that it sounds to me like the blockchain needs some form of virus protection or some form of anti-theft protection.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised if that's not. I haven't heard of anything. I, a,
Like
a
there
little
needs to be,
noise.
yeah, there needs to be something like a low jack on onto block.
Yeah, right. Because you these type of attacks are there. Yeah, you got Goldfinger attack, 51% attack. These different types of attacks, they're there. They're proven to be a threat. So, like you saying, there needs to be something to prevent these attacks from happening, even if um, your blockchain is not as decentralized as others. So, I agree with you saying, and yeah,
All right, this next one is from the blockchaincouncil.org. NASA to use Hyperledger blockchain for air traffic management. In 2017, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration awarded $330,000 grant that supported the development of an autonomous blockchain-based spacecraft system and making its first move towards blockchain adoption, called the Resilient Networking and Computing Paradigm. The new system relies on blockchain and requires no human intervention, continue, continuing its foray into the world on the blockchain. NASA released another report in which the organization has pointed out that the current air traffic management systems are prone to a number of cyber attacks, and blockchain can improve the security greatly. The report comes out of NASA Ames Research Center in California, was aimed was authorized primarily by the aerial aero computer engineer Ronald J. Reisman, who has extensive experience in the aerospace industry and is highly skilled in software development. Here's a look at the challenges faced by the military due to the adoption of the automatic dependent surveillance broadcast and how blockchain can solve the issues. Privacy is the utmost importance to sensitive operations like the military, and our current radar based system rely extensively on air traffic service providers maintain maintain that privacy. However, that can change soon with the Federal Aviation Administration's mandate to adopt the automatic dependent surveillance broadcast in 2020, which does not include provisions for maintaining the same privacy features. The report released by NASA claims that ADS also suffers from the risk of spoofing, denial of service, and other potential cyber attacks. Reisman claims that even though the FAA has scheduled that, quote, aircraft flying in the national service, national airspace system must equip the automatic dependent surveillance system by 2020. General aviation and the U.S. military lag behind with their implementation schedule. Reisman in the report claims that a lot of ADSB security issues can be mitigated using the open source permission blockchain to enable secure and an autonomous or anonymous communication with air traffic services. According to the abstract published with the report of NASA's official website, the blockchain based framework features certificate authority, smart contract support, and higher bandwidth communication channels for private information that may be used for secure communication between any specific aircraft and any particular authorized member, sharing data in accordance with the terms specified in the forms of smart contracts. In his report, Reisman uses the open source blockchain platform Hyperledger Fabric that is specifically designed for enterprise transactions that resemble typical air traffic management interactions. Hyperledger Fabric is a set of developer tools which help entity establish their own private blockchain quickly without worrying about the implementation details. A private blockchain created using Hyperledger Fabric gives permission access to trusted users. As designated by the creators of the blockchain, private blockchain does not have to deal with the additional overhead of synchronizing with millions of distributed devices, and therefore, private blockchain has much higher yield, much higher speeds. The report includes a prototype of the communication network in which trusted party like Fabric Certificate Authority is deployed for the registration entities, issuance, renewal, and revocation for enrollment certificates. Reisman notes that it has been difficult until now to implement the public key framework in a manner that can be utilized by aircraft in flight. Hyperledger also allows for air traffic systems to have a public key infrastructure, PKI, which would be crucial for maintaining secure identities for communication. The report claims that one of the biggest advantages of public keys used by Hyperledger is that the end user are not required to belong to any single organization or adhere six to any single client server protocol, making the platform much more interoperable. According to the paper, communication network powered by the blockchain would enable ADSB systems to meet or exceed the same level of privacy and security currently provided by radar-based systems in NAS.
It sounds like they're trying to mesh a couple things they have to track. Uh, my bad. It sounds like they're using this blockchain to track. How am I trying to say this? All right. It sounds like they got different systems. They use different systems to track air traffic management. Am I right or wrong in saying that?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, with that, obviously, these different systems have a difficult time speaking with each other. So, with this blockchain, they say, well, if we put everything on even though it's a blockchain, all blockchains are not public. It's a private. It's going to be a private blockchain. You're not going to have people coming in and say, "Hey, okay, this and that." It's going to be a private blockchain. What am I spitting? And they're going to take all these systems, kind of like what we went over last week when someone's going to use. Who's going to use the blockchain to have these different cloud platforms speak with each other? It's not. They're going to have all these systems speak with each other and track, uh, not track, but well, yeah, track and say, well, this is here, this is here, this is here. Coordinate. All systems are going to coordinate with each other and say, well, okay, system A said it's here. Last time it tracked it was here. System B says it's here. So you're going to obviously going to have a continuous, up to date record of where all these air flights are at, and whatever they're tracking, instead of having that lag. and that dangerous lag at that. They're going to have a continuous, up to date um, ledger of where everything that they're tracking is at. It sounds like what it's saying to me.
Well, the problem is that initially, or at least according to the article, that they're subjected to denial of service attacks. So you can actually spoof a radar tower um, with either poor information or inaccurate information, or just shut the tower down by a DOS attack, which would send all planes, incoming planes, offline from communication.
Now, remember we went over an article and someone was saying they were going to use blockchain to prevent cyber attacks for computers. Can that technology be potentially used to uh, a prevent that spoof attack, or if that spoof attack occurs, b say, well, what was the previous position of this plane to help bring the systems back up from the spoof attack?
No, and the
Mm,
reason why
okay.
the reason why I say no is because denial of service attack. You can't really stop that unless you have hardware mechanisms in place. So that's where something like a CDN comes into play,
Okay.
content delivery network. So a content delivery network, or a CDN, acts as a buffer against DOS attacks.
All right. So you have to secure the towers with hardware instead of
Well, not just
software.
hardware, not just hardware, but the way this person is looking at it is that Reisman, the way he's looking at it is that um, he's automating the functionality through smart contracts, while at the same time securing it through the blockchain itself, because of the immutability of it. So if
Ah,
there's
okay. Okay.
smart contracts involved, then it's already been authenticated because there's already keys in exchange. Whereas if the old way of doing it, there were no the infrastructure didn't even support such variations. So you can spam something like, well, not spam, but you can spoof attack it um, in the time of war. That would shut down your whole entire country. All planes would be grounded, and the military doesn't even have something like this in place.
Mm, wow. Okay. Okay.
All right, this next one is from space.com. The Hubble telescope's deep view of the universe is now even more astounding. One of Hubble telescope's most famous images peered even deeper into the cosmos than scientists had thought. That photo is the Hubble Ultra Deep Field, which combines hundreds of images taken by the Space Telescope over multiple years to the deepest view of the universe ever created. The composite pic of a small patch of sky contains a whopping 10,000 galaxies. Astronomers have estimated. Now the researchers have painstakingly reprocessed the iconic image, recovering lots of additional light, a new study reports. Quote, what we have done is to go back to the archive of the original images directly as observed by the HST, and improve the process of combination, aiming at the best image quality, not only for the more distant smaller galaxies, but also for the extended regions of the largest galaxies. Study leader Alejandro Borloff from the Instituto de, yeah, I'm not going to pronounce it, it's the IAC. The New York, the new work revealed that some of the galaxies in the HUDF view are nearly twice as big as previously thought, study team members said. The Hubble Space Telescope launched to Earth orbit in April 1990, aboard NASA's Space Shuttle Discovery. The scope got off to an auspicious start. Its initial images were blurry, a problem that mission team members traced to slight flaw in Hubble's primary mirror. Spacewalking astronauts fixed the problem in December 1993, giving Hubble the focus, the sharp focus that it's known for today. That was the first of five service missions that repaired, maintained, and upgraded the telescope over the years. The most recent of these, which occurred in May 2009, installed with what is today Hubble's main eye on the universe on the universe, an instrument called the Wild Wide Field Camera 3. The HUDF image has been a work in progress. The first version combined data gathered by the Hubble from 2003 to early 2004. Later updates have incorporated additional image imagery in various wavelengths of light. This old telescope is still working line though. How's it doing it?
We still don't know how the rover on Mars is still kicking. It's been kicking years after they said it should die, and this thing is still kicking. If it's still kicking, still use it. There's no
Hmm.
reason to fix a broke clock. Well, there is a reason to fix a broke clock, but there's no reason to fix a working clock. Now, these images that it like some fundamental, I'm going to say fundamental analysis of these pictures. On the top picture, it says the caption says the new version of Hubble's deep space image. In dark gray is the new light that have been found around the galaxies in this field. That light corresponds to the brightness of more than 100 billion suns. 100 billion suns. Now,
Damn son.
uh, now I believe there's more than that because some of that light, some suns can be bright where they drown out other suns that may not be as bright as them. You know, so this image right here, that first image is 100 billion suns just in the image.
Hmm.
Then in the next image, it says the 2012 version of the Hubble Ultra Deep Field image. So they're taking the same image, go and it went through its processes. So I mean, they in one image that they thought would contain millions of stars, it went through the process, and they found out it contains other billions of stars. But I would say that image that this newer version of the image contains even more because the light is so bright that it's hiding other stars. Even it may be a galaxy behind the galaxy because that galaxy is so bright. And also to add the cherry on top of the cake, there may be light that have not reached the telescope that's behind this image. So just to give people who's listening to this the depth and breadth of the galaxy, there's at least and this is not even a conservative estimate. This is very liberal. In this image, 100 billion suns, and of those 100 billion suns, how many of them have planets that's in a Goldilocks area where it's sustainable for human life? So these are the quantifications that you need quantum computers to and formulas to calculate. Like, wow, this is amazing, man.
Hmm.
And this is the Hubble. We what's the other one? The James, the new telescope that they're going to be launching, the James something telescope.
Yeah.
You know what that is going to capture. Golly, man, you aiming at the same part of the sky that the Hubble took this picture from, and see what pops up.
And that new telescope is 10 times better.
Man, this is this is exciting. As exciting as that orange pie.
Hmm. Better than a cream pie.
Right, I know.
Space travel could. All right, this next one is from BGR.com. Space travel could give astronauts cancer while weakening their immune system. There are countless hurdles preventing mankind from openly exploring the solar system with manned missions. The challenges that are often talked about the most relate to limitations of existing space flight technology, but it may ultimately be the human body that delays our first person exploration of space. Researchers have long believed that sending manned missions beyond the moon could pose serious risk of the health of the astronauts that are brave enough to take the trip. And a new study suggests that NASA and other space agencies have a good reasons to fear the worst. The research, which was published in the Journal of Applied Physiology, reveals that extended stays in space can dramatically affect an individual's immune system while also sharply increasing their risk of cancer. To get a better idea of how space affects the human body, scientists studied blood samples from space travelers who spent time aboard the International Space Station. By studying blood samples taken at different points in their journey and comparing them with the samples from before the trip into space, this, the team was able to plot a timeline that shows how long it takes for various cell functions to change. The results show that some ki- some key cell functions, specifically the activity of the NK, the natural killer cells that eliminate cancerous cells, drop off by as much as 50% after 90 days. Quote, when we took a look at the function of the astronaut samples during the flight compared to their own samples before they flew, it goes down. When we compare them to controls who stayed on Earth, it still goes down. Richard Sampson of the University of Arizona said in a statement, quote, I don't think there is any doubt that natural killer cell function is decreasing in the spaceflight environment when analyzed in cell culture system. Additionally, the team found that the first time astronauts seemed to have a more pronounced degradation in cell function than veteran astronauts who have been to space before. The real challenge scientists now is figuring out how to best mitigate the effect of space travel for astronauts who will one day travel to Mars and beyond. So it sounds to me like they need some kind of radiation suit. I don't think those spacesuits that they have are actually sustainable for space travel.
No, they're not. They're not. They're not. What we have now, per the article, is like you said, it's not sustainable for long times in space. Either they need to a design better suits to combat that because you're getting bombarded with these rays. They need better suits to combat that, or find a way if you're going to do space travel to limit the time you're in space, even when you plan on going to Mars. So it takes what 6 months between to go to Mars, and that's at the shortest period at the shortest point Mars is to Earth. So obviously, you SOL by the time you get to Mars. So you're going to need to shorten that time. That is not only in the window of preventing uh, cancer or the cancer fighting cells or killing the cancer fighting cells, but like maybe a month at the most. Would seem like this ideal to go to Mars. Taking a month, which means they're going to need to develop a way to uh, travel faster. So these new technologies, you can't use rocket fuel. That's just entirely too much. So this ion power, these different type technologies to travel faster. They gonna need to. That's what I'm looking for. I'm at a loss of words. They they're gonna need to develop those to perfection in order to travel or make better suits, way better suits. I don't know which one is cheaper. Obviously, I think better suits are cheaper, but then you got to test them out. So yeah,
Mhm.
wow. Jamal White said that can explain why flight attendants have a high rate of cancer. I did not know that.
All right, next, the last one is from express.co.uk. Scientists use laser technology to find lost city last inhabited 200 years ago. Scientists from the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa found the remnants of stone huts in up to 850 homesteads on the outskirts of the country's largest city. Drone footage shows what is left of the ruins of the settlement, which lies in the Circumscribed National Park and is thought to have been inhabited from the 15th century up until 200 years ago. To bring the fascinating discovery to life, researchers created three-dimensional images of the large plot using LiDAR. Fem Imali Sixwana, one of the researchers, told media, quote, "This is filling a huge historical gap, especially for Southern Africa, because we know the pre-colonial history of Southern Africa has no written records. So now we are starting to fill the gaps using lidar technology. The city believed to have been where Swana-speaking people lived, and scientists estimate its population to have reached to 10,000 people. It is one of several Swana cities in the north of South Africa, which thrived for generations before the first Europeans arrived on the country's shores and encountered the people. Swana's ethnic group are believed to have declined after a civil war. The remains of the sprawling metropolis known as Kwening shows it covered an area of 8 square miles. Evidence of the two enclosed areas in the city center has led scientists to believe they were corrals, enclosure where large numbers of livestock were kept. Image of the city 37 miles south of Joburg debunks myth about the country's history of civilization. LIDAR, a light and radar survey, was used by scientists in 2018 to uncover Mayan structures in Guatemalan jungle. It enabled users to create images of underground cities by using scanning machines, which sends out laser lights detecting any solid objects. This is amazing.
I would go out on a limb and say it's that place is older than that they discovered. I would say it's older than that because it seems like they always underestimate the time frame of these ancient civilizations or early. It's not really early civilization, but these long ago civilizations. Um, yeah,
Yeah, pre-colonial history, right? So before the blue-eyed, pale-faced man got there and did his dirty work, there were actually thriving cities in Africa. The problem I have with Europeans is this: is they paint this image of Africans living in huts, not knowing what to do with themselves, and they were just so primitive. Um, they were incompetent people. Their heads were shaped funny, and the Europeans had so much symmetry. They were just so much smarter, and they were just so much more brilliant. But the more you dig into history, prior to these pale-faced people coming here, you start to see that black people were actually doing very well for themselves before you came, and interrupted their party. So we don't even know where Africa could have been today had the European not gotten to, being disruptive.
I would say southern part of Africa. Uh, I've heard black, not the current professors or people that with knowledge, but the earlier people said that that part of Africa was known as Tanzania, and that encompassed not only modern day South Africa, Namibia, parts of Mozambique, Botswana, uh, Zimbabwe, but those areas had their own civilization outside of the Central Africa, the East Africa, the North, the Egyptian, the West Africa. So I said it to say that these areas in Africa had ancient civilizations, early civilizations that I'm not going to say, well, they had uh, chandeliers from the ceiling. No, I'm not saying that, but per that time period, where everybody else was doing their thing in the world, these civilizations were amongst the most respected
Hmm.
per that time period. You know, Europeans wasn't Europeans as they are today. Asians weren't Asians as they are today, and so forth and so forth. Go to Russia or Southeast Asia, whatever people around the world was doing at that time, whatever civilization, high civilization that they considered. These civilizations in Africa were just as good, if not better, than that time period.
Right, and we know that language and mathematics came out of Africa. So this idea that melanated people were just sitting around in huts, singing chants and stuff like that, man, they were doing mega things back then. They were
Yeah.
thriving societies back then. And while pale faced people were sitting in caves, wondering what their next meal was going to be, and being cuckolded and whatnot. Yeah, there's a whole lot of that stuff going on back then. That's why cuckold quote. I don't want to go into it. But that that's why Africans really didn't have to travel and kill a whole lot of people. They had all the resources. They had thriving societies. They were
Yeah.
they were using checks and banking systems back then. You know, hieroglyphics were hash rates. Were the hashes that led to hash what we have today for hash rates in cryptography.
People don't know hieroglyphic ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Those words, well, those images said a lot more than just words. Um, they, yeah, they said a lot more than just words. That instead of saying, "Oh, King Tut was here," no, it said a whole lot. That those little four symbols said a whole lot. Said a book more than just King Tut was here. No, it said a lot more. It was like each image in the hieroglyphics had it was just impacted with information. So yeah. Then you talking about the mathematics thing. That dates back to the earliest. I guess what they found was the Ishango bone. How it was like a ruler
Mhm.
almost. It was like a baboon bone that they had markings on it that you can measure things with. That was in, I want to say, the Uganda area of East Africa. Uh, Africans had their number system. Well, in West Africa, that is, it wasn't base 10, it was base 20, which made it easier. And I say that to say, I want to say, people say, well, Asians are good at math. It's not that they're uh, 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 genetically good at math. It's their language that allows them to be good at math. So I say it to say that not ancient Africans, your language and your way of communication allows you to get mathematics better or science better.
Mhm.
It's incorporated in your means of communication.
Right. And the first computer was actually designed in Africa during the Commission times. They had a tablet that had a couple rotary dials on it, um, that calculated functions. That back then was what we consider now to be a TI-86 Texas Instrument calculator. They had one of those back then. It was analog, but it wasn't. It was actually functional. So what we call a tablet today, they were actually using tablets back then, prior to Europeans even coming in.
Yeah.
And they would.
Oh, go
And,
ahead. Go ahead. My bad.
no, I was just going to say that. No, I was just going to say that historically we see that this sort of disruption, right? We saw with Black Wall Street. We can only go back, 75, 80 years for Black Wall Street and say, oh, well, the Europeans, or I shouldn't say the Europeans, but the colonialists came in and disrupted Black Wall Street. And then you go back prior to that and you see in Africa that Europeans came in and were disruptive too. So what was burnt down in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and North Carolina and Florida and all these other places where a lot of that information was burned to the ground and modified in the books. We also see that in Africa that Europeans did the same exact thing. They just go anywhere where black people were thriving and established. Pale faced people came in and were disruptive. When we talk about terrorism, it's always from a perspective of a melanated person with a thick beard, and his name is Muhammad, and he says Allah Akbar, and he prays 5 times a day. But the real terrorists are actually sitting up in the north.
Man, that I don't want to turn this into a
Political debate.
right, that type of video where you can't tell us apart from other people, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, uh, the binary system that they had evidence in Africa, not the zeros and the ones, not the specific 0 1s, but binary. Um, I remember someone was saying that Africans was working on something in a part of Africa before colonialism, but a lot of a lot of this stuff was disrupted, because not only was not only in places like these where you have natural resources that prevents you from not having to go out and discover or just puts a damper on that. If you have a lot of stuff in house already, there's really no reason to have that itch and drive to go out and discover, especially when that in house is 80, 79 degrees year round.
Mm-hmm.
But if you in the area like Japan, let's say, there's really there's no natural resources there, so they really have to go out and discover and conquer. A lot of European places have to go out and discover and conquer. So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I understand that aspect. I mean, I think we all understand that aspect that you have to actually eat, right, if you don't have any natural resources where you are. But what frustrates me is that they think that the continent belongs to them,
Oh, no, no, no.
right? They believe that the resources in the continent belong to them. We know that a lot of technologies came out of Africa prior to Europeans coming there, and the making of the firearm is which was what the game changer was, and the downfall for a lot of African civilization, at least for those on the perimeter of the continent itself. Those on the interior were spared because of the geographical challenges and the inclement weather of too much heat and things like that. See, Africans were okay with walking around, with the sun beating on them, saying, "Ooh, ain't gonna be no tan for me. I'm already dark, right?"
Right,
You're a
right.
European, you turn red like a crab, like a lobster.
I'm already good. There's a book. I can't remember the book right now. I don't want to say, but in ancient times, tables turn
Hmm.
throughout history. Tables turn. In ancient times, someone did some research, and the thought at this point at a certain amount of time was, oh, look at the Europeans. There will never be where Africans are today because Africa was considered where you would go to get learned, to get learned. Where the ancient Greeks, they got a lot of their gods from Africa. They got a lot of their mythology from Africa.
Hmm.
They got a lot of their math. The Pythagorean theorem. You can't. Those pyramids were built using formulas, including the Pythagorean theorem. There's papyri that have the Pythagorean theorem written out that are in museums saying, "Hey, um, you know, that shows the actual Pythagorean theorem that was used to build those uh, uh, pyramids," which means these people were these ancient Greeks were learned all their information. One ancient Greek says, my teacher lived 1,000 years ago. Well, died 1,000 years ago. I can't remember these people's names. I'm at lost words today. But one ancient Greek, he written so many books where it was inhumanly possible to write all them books in a lifetime. Though the diet is something I forgot. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up the pyramids because if you think about what a pyramid is today, a pyramid is a data center.
Mm.
And if you really want to be more technical, you would say that cloud computing was coming out of Africa. I mean, that's what the pyramids were set up for. Look at their placement. That's exactly how data centers are mostly set up, or infrastructure is mostly set up in that same exact uh, uh, um, layout.
Like in pyramids.
Yeah,
Hmm. I did not know that. I learned
yeah,
something
and
new today.
that's where Africans kept their literature. That's where they kept their books in a safe place, and they also harvest a lot of their agriculture and things like that in case of a disaster. So you're talking about disaster recovery, business continuity, information storage, data storage. That's what the books were for. Data storage. I mean the pyramids were for data storage.
Hmm.
Europeans didn't have data storage. I mean, they had Stonehenge, but there was nothing there, right? I mean, they didn't even put those up themselves. But there's no evidence of such technological inventions inside Europe. They didn't have pyramids like that.
There's a. I want to find this picture before I say something. I saw it before. I just want to make sure that how do you spell obelisk? Obelisk.
Starts with an O. Obelisk. Obelisk. And the scientist you were thinking of, Lionel, is Hippocrates, the so called father of medicine. However, Hippocrates, in his own hand, wrote, "I am nothing but a child of Imhotep, to whom I owe everything." Imhotep died 1,000 years before Hippocrates was even born. Therefore, the science, the medicine, and the philosophy falsely credited to Hippocrates literally came from Imhotep, the scientist who designed the pyramids.
That name, Hippocrates, it sounds like Jared Kushner or something like that, or I mean Jared
Mm,
Taylor.
well, 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 listen, history is written by the victors, which is why the great library was not called the Great Library of Alexandria until
Hmm.
the Romans conquered Egypt.
Hmm.
Because it was the Great Library, it was not the Great Library of Alexandria.
But you know what, Paul? We covered this. I think you might have been on one of our hangouts, where Africans are now starting to demand that their artifacts be returned. So a lot of this information is now going to be easily put together because the artifacts are going to be brought back.
Well, there are many museums around the world that would lose priceless. artifacts, if their ancient Egyptian displays and exhibits were literally returned to black people, if the many if the many artifacts from the Yoruba people, right, from the Benin people, from the Ethiopian and the Somali people were all to be returned. Think about this. Cheikh Anta Diop invented a process whereby he could prove the DNA and the ethnicity of any mummified body. All right. He proved that Tut,
was
King
black.
Tut, Tutankhamun, yes, he was African. He was black. He did not look like Elizabeth Taylor or Richard Burton. He looked like Wesley Snipes.
You know, when he proved that, they wouldn't let him back in Egypt.
That, thank you. That was my next statement. He was literally banned from returning to the country of Egypt.
And not
And
only, oh, go ahead, you got the floor.
when when the mummified bodies are exposed to X-rays, the mummified skin
Blue,
literally breaks down and
blue.
turns a lighter color.
Yeah.
So so when that was discovered by accident, they purposely exposed these mummified bodies, which looked black, to lighten the skin, and then those bodies, King Tut and Cleopatra, were then put on display, saying, "Look, see, they did look like Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor." That's a lie. No, they did not.
Didn't he prove Ramses was from the Niger area, more Central Africa?
That I do not remember offhand. However, Egypt is in Africa, which is why the the ancient Greeks and the Romans, all of their statues were carved in what? Ivory and marble. The ancient Egyptians, all of their statues, if you ever go to see them, which I've seen them in person, there's a reason why they're carved in black onyx stone, because the pharaohs were black. Egypt is in Africa. How could people who look like Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton from the movies evolve in such a difficult extreme climate?
Hmm.
Okay, so listen, I am not trying to, you know, rant or shout or anything like that, but you cannot deny facts, even in the face of movies, all right, and television shows, and even in the face of a government banning a scientist whose work was ridiculed around the world until his scientific process was begrudgingly accepted as fact. Even in the face of all of that, you can't argue logic, especially when it's being proved science.
Hmm. We're gonna do a hangout, just on the technological aspect of Africa alone, uh, going all the way back into Imhotep. So
Yeah. Those but Benin masks, um, someone studied them, and they have either the same amount of complexity or more when because they were made before colonialism or something.
hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot, but they have just as much complexity, if not more, than the artwork that was done in Europe and around the world at that time.
And you have to go. You have to think that the amount of engineering and the tools needed to actually do the things that they needed to do. I mean, they can't even figure it out to this very day how they were able to move such blocks and things like that. Like
They
it's crazy.
they they one of the popular notions is people lifted it up, but you can't get enough people under it
Hmm.
to lift up 20 ton stones. like a 20-ton stone, you can't get enough people under it. Enough people can't fit under it to move it. And how you gonna pick it up in the first place, even to get those people to get up under it and move it?
Also, you have to remember uh, the area around the Great Pyramids. The ground is covered in sand. I don't know offhand. I'd be lying if I said I know offhand how deep the sand is. Even though I've been there, but it's covered in sand. You cannot lift heavy weight sitting on an unstable surface. It does not work that way.
And
But
cut it with such precision.
which is the next thing that I was going to get to. From the
Hey,
cornerstone to the capstone of the Great Pyramid and the other two pyramids on the Giza Plateau.
Hmm.
From from the base of the cornerstone to the capstone, from top to bottom, they're in perfect alignment to within 1/8 of an inch. Thousands of years later, they haven't moved, they haven't shifted. That is laser accurate precision to within eighth of an inch. All right. That area of Africa, in fact, the entire continent of Africa, but especially the north, which is the Sahara Desert, it's a desert. So they needed irrigation. It takes mathematics and physics to understand irrigation and how to implement it.
the,
All right. So I'm sorry. Yeah.
did you know at there was I don't know if he was scientist or archaeologist. He was saying that they cut the bricks with sand. To they use sand to cut the stone. So they had him out there in the sun. Said, okay, test your theory. So he was out there. He got like a stone, and he had some sand, and he had the tools that they would have used at that time. And he was out there trying to cut the stone with sand. He was sweating bullets. He said, "Nah, I don't think they cut this shit with sand."
Well, you see, the thing is this: um, using the tools they had at that time, we don't know. Well, let me say this: here's what you have to do. You literally stop teaching something. You stop talking about it. So the people who remember, you let them die out. And the younger people, you teach them something completely opposite. Within 100 to 150 years, it has passed from fact to rumor to myth to legend to fairy tale. All right. So that is how the scientific methods used to construct the pyramids have passed into, oh, we have this guess, this theory, we don't really know. I will leave that there. But I can absolutely speak on that when we get off air. But
Hey,
there is so
hey,
much that has been purposely hidden.
and Mike, I'm with you on that. That the technology of ancient Africa, just to have a span on the history of ancient Africa, because it's always talked about in one directional way. Just put our spin on it. The technology of ancient Africa.
Yeah, you can apply it to everything that they're doing today. Like I said, cryptography came out of Africa.
Yeah,
Hash rates and all that stuff came out of Africa.
it's
Those
pretty
are,
cool.
same thing with tablet-based computers. I think Paul kind of alluded to it, but that was your first gadget in terms of technology.
The slide rule, which predated both the computer and the calculator,
Hmm.
there are there are hieroglyphs on the wall showing devices that were used in the manner of what we now know as a slide rule.
Hmm.
The abacus, which is widely credited as coming from Asia, there are hieroglyphs in the walls in Egypt showing that they were using what would be an abacus.
Hmm.
Right? You cannot build, you cannot build anything which requires precision without mathematics and an understanding of physics. You cannot.
You said it was inside the wall where?
In Egypt, there are hieroglyphs on the walls in the temples in Egypt that show devices that we now know as a slide rule and an abacus.
Hmm.
The abacus is widely credited as coming from Asia, but there are hieroglyphs showing devices that look exactly like an abacus.
Hmm.
And again, you cannot build anything more than a mud hut. All right, you cannot build anything that is large, requires accuracy and load bearing without mathematics and an understanding of basic physics.
Hmm. Right, and it's interesting that you bring that up because putting those devices inside of a temple or inside the pyramid itself makes it means that they were working on supercomputing functions. When you think about what a supercomputer actually does, is it cracks numbers. That's exactly what they were doing inside those pyramids.
They were doing a lot more than that, but
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. But that's
I will leave
that's
that
Yeah,
to.
they,
What's that?
it's how you said it. It's how you said it that made me laugh. Yeah, but yeah, I'm done, man.
yeah. I just want to make this announcement that the Black Brain Trust will be on Information Man show in the coming week. So stay tuned for that.
Information, man.
All right. Thank you all for joining us and have a good night.
All right.